The Krath Dominion thought they could do whatever they wanted. They were a powerful alien empire with shiny ships and tall cities made of metal and glass. Their leaders believed no one could stop them, not even Earth. So one dark day, they did something terrible. They took 10 humans, people just like you and me, and sent them far away to a lonely, barren moon. This moon was a cold, empty place, covered in gray rocks and choking dust. There was no water to drink, no food to eat, and no tools to build anything. The Krath didn't care. They left the humans there to suffer, thinking no one would notice or care. They didn't give the humans a trial or even ask their names. It was like those people didn't matter at all. The Krath wanted silence and they thought they'd get it, but they were wrong. The galaxy, with all its stars and planets, was watching. And back on Earth, people were listening, their hearts starting to burn with anger. The Krath Dominion wasn't new to being cruel. They had ruled over many planets for a long time, and they liked to show everyone how strong they were. Their ships zipped through space, faster than anything humans had ever built. Their soldiers wore armor that glowed with strange blue light, and their leaders sat in huge thrones, giving orders without ever smiling. To them, humans were small and weak, like ants they could step on. That's why they picked those 10 people, 5 men and 5 women, and sent them to that awful moon. They thought it would scare other humans into staying quiet and obeying. The Krath leaders laughed in their shiny halls, sure that no one would dare fight back. They didn't know that Earth was different. They didn't know that humans don't give up so easily. The moon they chose was called Zorath 7. It was a forgotten place, far from any busy space routes. No one went there because there was nothing to find. No plants, no animals, just endless piles of rocks and craters. The air was thin, barely enough to breathe, and the ground was so dry it cracked under your feet. The Krath dropped the 10 humans there in a rusty old ship that barely worked. They didn't give them spacesuits or blankets to keep warm. They didn't leave a single crate of food or a bottle of water. The humans were left with nothing but the clothes they were wearing. The Krath thought the humans would give up and fade away, lost in the quiet of that dead moon. But the galaxy has eyes, and news travels fast, even from a place as far away as Zorath 7. The 10 humans weren't just random people. They were teachers, builders, parents, and friends. One was a woman named Lila who used to tell stories to kids in her village. Another was a man named Sam who fixed machines and made them hum like magic. There was a young woman, Aisha, who loved to draw pictures of the stars. Each of them had a life, a home, and people who loved them. The Krath didn't think about that. They didn't care that taking these people would break hearts back on Earth. They didn't know that every person they hurt had someone waiting for them, someone who would fight to bring them back. The Krath thought they could hide what they did, but whispers were already spreading across the stars. The Krath had a big meeting to decide what to do with the humans. It happened in a secret place, a huge space station that floated above a red planet. The station was like a city in the sky, with tall towers and lights that never turned off. Inside, the Krath leaders sat around a long table, their faces cold and hard. They spoke in sharp, hissing voices, saying things like, "Humans are weak. They'll never fight back." They thought exiling the 10 humans would send a message to Earth. Stay in your place or we'll hurt you again. They planned it all in secret, thinking no one would find out. But someone did. A small spy drone, no bigger than a bird, was hiding in the shadows of their station. It recorded everything and sent the news back to Earth. When the people on Earth heard what happened, they were shocked. Families cried for their loved ones stuck on that faraway moon. Friends gathered in homes and town halls talking about what to do. The news spread fast like a fire jumping from one tree to another. People watched videos of the craft's cruel decision, their hearts growing heavy but also angry. Earth wasn't a place that stayed quiet for long. The leaders of Earth, men and women who cared about their people, started to talk. They didn't shout or make big speeches. They met in quiet rooms, away from cameras, and began to plan. The craft thought they had won, but they didn't know humans. They didn't know that when you push humans, they push back harder. The craft's mistake was thinking no one cared about those 10 people. They thought humans were too busy or too scared to act. But on Earth, people were already moving. Scientists started working on new ideas. Engineers began building strange machines. Even kids like the ones in Leela's village, stories, wanted to help. They drew pictures of the moon and wrote letters to the leaders, asking to save their friends. The craft had no idea what they had started. By sending those 10 humans to Zorath 7, they didn't just hurt a few people, they woke up a whole planet. Earth was listening, and it was ready to answer. The craft's leaders went back to their normal days after the exile. They held parties in their shiny cities and sent more ships to patrol the stars. They thought everything was fine. But out there, in the cold darkness of space, something was changing. The galaxy wasn't as quiet as they thought. Other alien races, ones who didn't like the craft, started whispering about what happened. They sent messages to Earth, offering help. Some shared maps of the craft's secret bases. Others gave tips about their weak spots. The craft thought they were alone in their power, but they were. The galaxy was watching, and it didn't like what it saw. On Zorath 7, the 10 humans weren't giving up either. Even with no food or tools, they worked together. Leela told stories to keep everyone's spirits high. Sam used rocks to build a small shelter from the freezing nights. Aisha drew maps in the dust, trying to figure out where they were. They were tired, hungry, and cold, but they didn't stop. They knew Earth wouldn't forget them. They believed someone would come. And they were right. Back on Earth, people were already planning something big. The craft thought they had buried the humans in silence, but that silence was about to break. The craft's biggest mistake was underestimating humans. They thought Earth was just a small planet full of people who couldn't do much. They didn't know that humans were clever, stubborn, and brave. When the news of the exile reached Earth, it didn't make people scared, it made them mad. Cities buzzed with activity. Factories started working day and night. Ships were repaired and made stronger. People who had never met the 10 exiles felt like they knew them. They saw their faces on screens and heard their names in every home. The craft thought they could hide their cruelty, but the truth was out, and it was spreading like a storm. The galaxy kept watching. Other planets, ones the craft had bullied before, sent secret messages to Earth. They said things like, "We're with you," or "The craft aren't as strong as they seem." Some even sent supplies like food and small machines to help Earth get ready. The craft didn't notice because they were too busy feeling powerful. They didn't see the spark they had lit. That spark was growing, and soon it would turn into a fire they couldn't put out. The 10 humans on Zorath 7 were the start of something huge. something the Krath could never have expected. In their shiny halls, the Krath leaders kept laughing. They thought they had won. They thought the humans were gone forever, lost on a dead moon. They didn't know that Earth was awake and its people were ready to fight. The galaxy was no longer silent. It was buzzing with whispers, plans, and hope. The Krath thought they could control everything, but they were about to learn a hard lesson. Humans don't give up, and Earth doesn't forget its own. The 10 humans exiled by the Krath Dominion to the Barren Moon weren't just ordinary people. Each one had a story, a family, and someone important who loved them deeply. These weren't strangers the Krath could ignore. They were people with big dreams, kind hearts, and powerful friends who would never let them be forgotten. The Krath thought they could toss these humans away like trash, but they didn't know they had hurt the wrong people. Every single one of those 10 had someone back on Earth, or even across the stars, who cared and was ready to fight for them. First, there was Layla, a woman with a warm smile who told stories to children in her small town. She had a way of making everyone feel safe, even when the world felt scary. Leela's stories weren't just about adventure or heroes. They were about hope, about believing things could get better. Her brother, Marcus, was a brilliant scientist. He wasn't famous, but he was clever, building machines and weapons from bits of metal and wire most people would throw away. Marcus could take a broken radio and turn it into a tool that could talk to ships across the galaxy. When he heard Layla was taken, his heart broke, but his mind started racing. He wasn't going to sit and cry. He was going to build something to bring her back. Then there was Sam, a man who loved fixing things. He was the kind of person who could look at a busted engine and make it hum again in a few hours. Sam wasn't loud or showy, but everyone in his city knew him. If your bike broke or your heater stopped, Sam was the one you called. His best friend was a woman named Tara, a commander in Earth's space fleet. Tara had led ships through battles that seemed impossible to win. She was tough, with sharp eyes that could spot danger a mile away, but she had a soft spot for Sam. They grew up together, sharing secrets and dreams under the stars. When Tara learned Sam was exiled, she clenched her fists and swore she'd fly to that moon herself if she had to. Another human was Aisha, a young artist who drew pictures so beautiful they made people stop and stare. She loved sketching the night sky, filling her drawings with stars and planets that seemed to glow on the page. Aisha wasn't rich or famous, but she had a friend named Kale, a hacker who could break into almost any computer system. Kale was quiet, always tapping away at his screens, finding secrets others wanted to hide. He and Aisha were like siblings, always joking and sharing snacks while she drew and he worked. When Kale found out Aisha was sent to Zorath 7, his fingers froze on his keyboard. Then he started typing faster than ever, vowing to find a way to get her back. There was also Jamal, a teacher who helped kids learn about math and science. He had a big laugh that filled any room, and he never gave up on a student, no matter how much they struggled. Jamal's wife, Lena, was a builder who designed bridges and towers that could stand for 100 years. She was strong, both in her arms and her heart, and she loved Jamal more than anything. When the news came that he was taken, Lena stopped her work on a new bridge and turned her skills to something else. She started designing plans to help Earth fight back, using her knowledge to make things the Krath would never expect. Next was Maria, a nurse who cared for sick people in a small hospital. She was gentle, always knowing how to make someone feel better, whether it was with medicine or just a kind word. Maria's daughter, Sophia, was only 16 but already a rising star in Earth's pilot school. Sophia could fly a ship through a storm of asteroids without blinking. She looked up to her mom and wanted to make her proud. When Sophia heard Maria was exiled, she snuck into the pilot training center at night, determined to learn everything she could to help rescue her. Then there was Chen, a farmer who grew food in places where nothing should grow. He knew how to make plants thrive in dry soil or cold weather. Chen was quiet, but his hands were always busy planting seeds or fixing tools. His older sister, May, was a leader in Earth's council, someone who made big decisions about how to keep people safe. May was calm in meetings, but when she learned Chen was gone, her eyes turned fierce. She started calling other leaders, making plans in secret to show the Krath they couldn't hurt her brother and get away with it. Another human was Priya, a musician who played songs that made people dance or cry. Her music wasn't just sound, it was like magic that brought people together. Priya's best friend, Raj, was an engineer who built robots that could explore dangerous places like volcanoes or deep space. Raj was shy but brilliant, always tinkering with gears and wires. When he heard Priya was taken, he locked himself in his workshop, working day and night to create something that could help find her, something the Krath wouldn't see coming. There was also Diego, a firefighter who saved people from burning buildings and crashing ships. He was brave, always running toward danger instead of away from it. Diego's cousin, Elena, was a spy who worked for Earth, sneaking into places to learn secrets. Elena was good at blending in, looking like just another face in a crowd, but she could steal information from the tightest security systems. When she found out Diego was exiled, she slipped into a Krath outpost, gathering clues about where he was and what the Krath were planning. Another exile was Zara, a librarian who knew more about books and history than anyone in her city. She could tell you stories about old Earth or explain how stars were born. Zara's uncle, Omar, was a general in Earth's army. He was tough, with a voice that could make soldiers stand straighter, but he loved Zara like she was his own daughter. When Omar heard she was taken, he gathered his best soldiers and started planning a way to hit the Krath where it hurt. Finally, there was Leo, a kid not much older than you, who loved animals and took care of stray dogs and cats in his neighborhood. Leo had a big heart, always making sure every creature had food and a safe place to sleep. His older brother, Noah, was a pilot who flew supply ships to faraway colonies. Noah was fearless, always ready to take on a risky mission. When he learned Leo was sent to that awful moon, Noah climbed into his ship and started checking every star map he could find, determined to bring his little brother home. Each of these 10 humans was special, not because they were famous or rich, but because they were loved. They had families, friends, and people who looked up to them. The Krath thought they could take these people and no one would care. They thought humans were weak, easy to forget. But they didn't know Marcus, the scientist, was already building a device to track the Krath's ships. They didn't know Tara, the commander, was rallying her fleet for a secret mission. They didn't know Kale, the hacker, was breaking into their systems, stealing their plans. Lena, Sophia, May, Raj, Elena, Omar, and Noah. They were all moving, planning, working together. The Krath had hurt the wrong people, and those people's loved ones were not going to let it go. The Krath didn't understand how humans work. They thought taking 10 people would make Earth quiet and scared. Instead, it made Earth loud with purpose. Across cities and towns, people talked about Lila, Sam, Aisha, Jamal, Maria, Chen, Priya, Diego, Zara, and Leo. Their names were on every screen in every home. Kids drew pictures of them and adults made plans to save them. The Krath thought they could hide what they did, but the truth was spreading. Other planets, ones the Krath had bullied before, heard about the exiles and sent messages to Earth. They said, "We're with you. Let's stop the Krath together." Back on Zoreth 7, the 10 humans were holding on. They didn't know about the plans being made, but they believed in each other. Leela kept telling stories to make them smile. Sam built a small shelter from rocks to keep them warm. Aisha drew maps in the dust, hopping to find a way to signal for help. They were tired and hungry, but they didn't give up. They knew Earth was out there, and they trusted their families and friends were coming for them. The Krath thought they had won, but they didn't know the power of love and loyalty. Those 10 humans weren't alone, and the Krath were about to find out what happens when you hurt the wrong people. The humans didn't sit still after the Krath Dominion exiled their 10 friends to the barren moon. They didn't shout or make big speeches. Instead, they started to act, quiet but strong, like a river carving through stone. Earth's people were angry, but they were smart. They knew yelling wouldn't bring Lila, Sam, Aisha, and the others back. So they began small, clever moves to show the Krath they couldn't get away with their cruelty. At first, the Krath didn't take it seriously. They laughed, thinking humans were too weak to fight back. But something had started, and it was growing bigger every day. It began with a single Krath ship vanishing in the dark of space. The ship was called Iron Claw, a big, shiny vessel that carried food and weapons to Krath outposts. One night it was sailing through a quiet part of the galaxy, far from any planet. Its lights blinked, its engines hummed, and then nothing. No signal, no message, no trace. The Krath searched for days, sending out smaller ships to look for wreckage or clues. They found nothing but empty space. The crew, the cargo, everything was gone. The Krath leaders scratched their heads, thinking it was just bad luck. They didn't know humans were behind it. On Earth, a group of clever pilots and hackers had worked together. Noah, Leo's older brother, was one of them. He flew a small, fast ship that could hide in the shadows of asteroids. With him was Kale, Aisha's hacker friend who could trick any computer. They found the Iron Claw's path and used a tiny device Kale built to shut down its systems. The ship didn't crash. It just floated, silent and dark, until Noah's team towed it to a secret spot. They didn't hurt anyone. They just took the ship and its supplies, leaving the Krath confused. This was the first step, and it felt good to strike back. A few days later, something else happened. A Krath supply station, a big floating platform that stored food and fuel, stopped working. This station was called Blue Anchor, and it sat near a busy trade route. It was important because it kept Krath ships ready to fly. One morning its lights went out. The machine stopped humming. The workers inside couldn't open doors or send messages. It was like the whole station fell asleep. The Krath sent repair teams, but they couldn't figure out what was wrong. The station stayed dark for days, and their ships had to find other places to get supplies. This was no accident. Back on Earth, Marcus, Leela's scientist brother, had a plan. He worked with a team of engineers, including Lena, Jamal's wife, who knew how to build strong machines. They created a tiny bug, smaller than a coin, that could sneak into the station's computers. Kale, the hacker, helped send it through a signal no one noticed. The bug didn't break anything. It just turned things off like flipping a switch. The Krath workers were stuck, scratching their heads, while Earth's people smiled in secret. They were showing the Krath that humans could hit where it hurt without firing a single shot. The Krath leaders still didn't worry much. They sat in their shiny halls, sipping drinks and laughing. Humans, one leader said, his voice sharp like a knife. They're nothing. A ship's gone, a station's dark, so what? We have thousands more. They thought these were small problems, like a fly buzzing around their heads. They didn't see the pattern. They didn't know that every move was part of a bigger plan. Earth's people weren't just acting randomly. They were testing the Krath, learning how they worked, and finding their weak spots. Another move came soon after. A Krath communication tower, one that sent messages between their bases, went silent. This tower was on a small, rocky planet called Vexus. It was a key link, letting Krath leaders talk to their faraway ships. One night its signal stopped. No warnings, no alarms, just quiet. The Krath tried to fix it, but every time they turned it back on, it shut down again. They didn't know that Alina, Diego's spy cousin, had slipped onto Vexus with a team of quiet movers. They didn't carry guns or bombs. Instead, they had tools and a clever trick from Marcus, a device that scrambled the tower's signals without breaking it. Alina's team worked in the dark, hiding in the planet's caves. They were fast and careful like shadows. They didn't want to destroy the tower, they just wanted to make the Krath feel lost. Without their messages getting through, Krath ships got confused. Some went to the wrong places. Others waited for orders that never came. The Krath leaders started to argue, blaming each other for the mistakes. Earth's people watched from afar, knowing they were starting to shake the Krath's confidence. Back on Earth, more people joined the fight. Sophia, Maria's young pilot daughter, was training harder than ever. She flew practice missions, learning how to dodge lasers and hide in clouds of space dust. She wasn't alone. Other pilots, young and old, were getting ready. They didn't have as many ships as the Krath, but they were clever. They used small, fast ships that could dart in and out of danger. Noah taught them tricks he'd learned from years of flying supply runs. Together, they planned more surprises for the Krath, always staying one step ahead. The Krath started to notice something was wrong, but they didn't want to admit it. Their leaders held meetings in their big space station, shouting about who was to blame. "It's just accidents," one said. "No one could do this to us," another yelled. They didn't want to believe humans could cause so much trouble, but the problems kept coming. A Krath fuel depot, hidden on an icy asteroid, ran dry. No one stole the fuel, it just stopped flowing. Raj, Priya's engineer friend, had built a tiny robot that crawled into the depot's pipes and clogged them. The robot was so small the Krath never saw it. Their ships had to limp back to other bases, low on fuel and frustrated. Every move was small, but together they were powerful. A missing ship here, a dark station there, a silent tower, a dry fuel depot, it added up. The Krath's big, shiny empire was starting to creak. Their leaders weren't laughing as much anymore. They sent out more patrols, thinking they could catch whoever was doing this. But Earth's people were too smart. They didn't fight like the Krath expected. There were no big battles, no loud explosions. Just quiet, clever actions that made the Krath feel like they were losing control. On Earth, the plans kept growing. Mei Chen's sister and a council leader held secret meetings in a small room with no windows. She brought together scientists, pilots, hackers, and builders. They didn't talk about revenge, they talked about justice. They wanted the Krath to know they couldn't hurt humans and walk away. Omar, Zara's general uncle, was there too, drawing maps of Krath bases. He knew they couldn't fight the Krath's whole army, but they could outsmart them. Every person in that room had someone they loved on Zorath 7, and they worked together like a family. Kids on Earth were helping too. In schools, they made posters with pictures of the 10 exiles, reminding everyone why they were fighting. Some kids, inspired by Leela's stories, wrote their own tales about heroes saving the day. Others helped their parents pack supplies for ships heading out to space. Even the youngest felt like they were part of something big. The whole planet was buzzing with energy, like a beehive ready to protect its home. Krath's laughter was fading fast. They sent messages to their bases demanding answers. Find the humans, they ordered, but their soldiers found nothing. The humans were like ghosts, striking and disappearing. One night, a Krath warehouse full of spare parts for their ship stopped working. Its doors wouldn't open and its lights flickered out. Lena's team had snuck in, using one of Marcus's devices to lock the system down. The Krath couldn't fix their ships without those parts, and their patrols grew weaker. These small moves weren't just about causing trouble. They were about sending a message. Earth's people wanted the Krath to know they were watching. They wanted the Krath to feel the same fear the 10 exiles felt on that lonely moon. But they didn't want to hurt innocent Krath workers or families. They only targeted ships, stations, and systems that kept the Krath's power strong. Every action was careful, planned to make the Krath think twice about what they'd done. The galaxy started to notice. Other planets, ones the Krath had scared or controlled, sent secret messages to Earth. "Keep going," they said. "We're with you." Some shared maps of Krath bases. Others sent tools or fuel to help Earth's ships. The Krath thought they were alone in their power, but they weren't. The humans were building a team, not just on Earth, but across the stars. The Krath's empire was big, but it was starting to crack, and those cracks were spreading. The small revenge moves were just the beginning. Earth's people were learning how the Krath worked, finding their weak spots and getting ready for bigger steps. The Krath didn't know it yet, but they had woken something they couldn't stop. The humans weren't fighting with anger. They were fighting with hope. They believed in their friends on Zorath 7, and they knew every small action brought them closer to bringing them home. The Krath had laughed at first, but now they were starting to look over their shoulders, wondering what would happen next. The Krath Dominion thought they were unstoppable. Their shiny ships and tall cities made them feel like kings of the galaxy. But one Krath general named Zorak wasn't so sure anymore. He was different from the others. While most Krath leaders laughed and ignored the small problems, Zorak paid attention. He sat in his dark office, high up in a tower on their main space station, reading reports that made his stomach twist. Something was wrong. The humans were doing things, clever, quiet things, and Zorak was starting to see a pattern. Ships vanished in the same part of space. Power went out at stations at the exact same time. This wasn't bad luck. It was a plan, and the humans weren't scared. They were getting ready. Zorak was a tall Krath with sharp eyes and a scar across his cheek from an old battle. He wasn't like the other leaders who sat on thrones and bragged. He was careful, always watching, always thinking. Every morning he read messages from Krath bases across the galaxy. At first the reports seemed small: a missing ship, a broken tower, a station gone dark. The other leaders called it nothing, just glitches or lazy workers. But Zorak didn't believe that. He spread the reports on his desk, connecting dots in his mind. The Iron Claw ship disappeared in the nebula sector. The blue anchor station lost power 2 days later in the same area. The communication tower on Vexus went quiet the next week, not far away. These weren't random events. Someone was behind them. Zorak called his assistant, a young Krath named Vera, into his office. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a map glowing on a screen. It showed the nebula sector, a cloudy part of space filled with dust and stars. He marked where the problems happened, red dots blinking like warnings. "These aren't accidents," he told Vera. "Someone is hitting us on purpose." Vera frowned, her long fingers tapping the desk. She was smart but nervous. "Humans?" she asked. Zorak nodded. "Who else?" "They're angry about the exiles." Vera shook her head. "But they're weak. They don't have ships like ours." Zorak's eyes narrowed. "Don't underestimate them," he said. "They're not fighting like we do." The Krath leaders held a big meeting in their shiny space station. The room was huge, with walls made of silver metal and windows showing the red planet below. The leaders sat around a long table, their voices loud and sharp. They argued about the missing ship in the dark station. "It's nothing," one leader shouted, slamming his fist. "Fix it and move on." Another laughed, saying humans were too small to matter. But Zorak stayed quiet, his fingers tracing the map on his tablet. He didn't join the shouting. He was thinking, piecing together the clues. When he finally spoke, the room went still. "We're being attacked," he said. "Not with guns, but with tricks. The humans are planning something." The other leaders stared, then laughed again. But their laughs were shorter this time. Zorak went back to his office and pulled up more reports. A fuel depot on an icy asteroid had stopped working. A warehouse full of ship parts was locked shut. Each problem happened in the nebula sector or close by. Zorak's heart beat faster. He wasn't scared, but he was worried. The Krath had enemies, but none moved like this. Other alien races fought with big ships and loud battles. These attacks were silent, like a thief in the night. Zorak sent a message to all Krath bases. "Watch the nebula sector. Report anything strange." He didn't know if anyone would listen, but he had to try. The next day, another problem hit. A Krath patrol ship, the Silver Fang, sent a distress call from the edge of the nebula sector. Then it went quiet. No explosion, no fight, just silence. Zorak rushed to the control room where screens showed maps and signals. The Silver Fang's tracker was gone, like it had never existed. Vera stood beside him, her eyes wide. "Another one," she whispered. Zorak nodded, his jaw tight. He called the ship's captain, but no one answered. He sent scout ships to look, but they found nothing. No wreckage, no clues. It was like the ship had been swallowed by the stars. Zorak started to dig deeper. He looked at old reports, messages, anything that might explain what was happening. He found a tiny clue, a signal sent from the blue anchor station just before it went dark. The signal was Krath. It was human, short and coded like a whisper in the dark. Zorak's blood ran cold. The humans weren't just breaking things, they were inside Krath systems. He called Vera and showed her the signal. "They're hacking us," he said. "They're turning our own machines against us." Vera's hands shook. "What do we do?" she asked. Zorak didn't answer right away. He was thinking about the 10 humans on Zorath 7. This all started with them. Back on Earth, the humans were moving fast. Kale, the hacker who loved Aisha like a sister, was at his computer, his fingers flying over the keys. He had broken into another Krath system, this time a small repair dock. He didn't destroy it, he just turned off its lights and locked its doors. Meanwhile, Noah, Leo's pilot brother, was flying his small ship through the nebula sector, hiding in clouds of dust. He dropped tiny devices that messed with Krath signals, making their ships lose their way. Every move was small, but together, they were like pebbles starting an avalanche. Zorak tried to warn the other leaders, but they didn't want to hear it. They were too busy planning a big show of power, a parade of ships to scare other planets. Zorak went to the meeting anyway, holding up his tablet with the map of red dots. "Look," he said, his voice sharp. "The humans are hitting us here, here, and here. It's not random, they're testing us." The head leader, a Krath named Torvax, leaned back in his throne. "You worry too much, Zorak," he said with a smirk. "Humans are ants. Crush them and be done." Zorak clenched his fists. "Ants don't make ships disappear," he said. Torvax waved him away, but a few other leaders looked uneasy. That night Zorak couldn't sleep. He stood by his window, staring at the stars. He thought about the humans on Zorath 7, wondering if they were still alive. He didn't like what the Krath had done, but he was loyal to his people. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something big was coming. The humans weren't acting like a weak planet. They were acting like a storm, quiet at first but ready to roar. Zorak sent more scout ships to the nebula sector, telling them to look for anything. Human ships, signals, even shadows. He didn't know what they'd find, but he wasn't going to sit and wait. The next morning, another report came in. A Krath listening post, a small station that tracked signals, went offline. It was in the nebula sector just like the others. Zorak rushed to the control room, his heart pounding. The screens showed the same thing, nothing. No signal, no warning, just a dead station. Vera was there, her face pale. "It's them again," she said. Zorak nodded. He pulled up the last message from the listening post. It was garbled, but one word stood out: Earth. Zorak's scar seemed to burn. The humans weren't hiding anymore. They were leaving their name. Zorak called every Krath base in the sector, telling them to lock down their systems. He told them to check every signal, every machine. But the Krath weren't ready for this kind of fight. Their computers were built for war, not tricks. The humans were slipping through like water through a net. Zorak thought about Kale, though he didn't know his name. He thought about Noah, flying in the dark. He didn't know these people, but he felt their strength. The Krath had always fought with big ships and loud weapons. The humans fought with brains and silence. The other Krath leaders started to feel the pressure. Supplies were running low at some bases because of the dark stations and missing ships. Soldiers whispered about ghosts in the nebula sector. Workers were scared to go to their posts, afraid the lights would go out. Torvax, the head leader, called another meeting. This time he wasn't smiling. "What is happening?" he demanded. Zorak stood up, holding his tablet. "I told you," he said. "The humans are fighting back. They're not scared, they're planning." Torvax glared, but he didn't argue. The room was quiet. and for the first time the leaders looked nervous. Zorak kept working day and night. He sent more ships to patrol, but they found nothing. He checked every system looking for human tricks. He found another coded signal, this one from the fuel depot that ran dry. It was human, short, and clever, like a note left in the dark. Zorak's worry grew. He started to see the humans weren't just angry, they were organized. They had a plan, and it was bigger than he'd thought. He tried to tell Torvax again, but the leader was stubborn. "We'll crush them," Torvax said. "Send more ships." Zorak shook his head. "That's what they want," he said, but Torvax wouldn't listen. The galaxy was watching, too. Other planets, ones the Krath had pushed around, started to talk. They sent secret messages to Earth offering help. Some shared maps of Krath bases. Others sent tools to fix human ships. The Krath thought they ruled alone, but their grip was slipping. Zorak saw it, even if the others didn't. He looked at his map, the red dots glowing brighter. Every day a new dot appeared, another ship gone, another station dark. The humans were moving faster, and Zorak knew they weren't stopping. The Krath soldiers were getting jumpy. They checked their ships twice before flying. They watched the stars, afraid of shadows. Zorak walked through the space station, hearing their whispers. "The humans are coming," one said. "They're ghosts," said another. Zorak didn't correct them. He knew the humans weren't ghosts, they were real and they were smart. He thought about Zoreth 7, the moon where the 10 humans were sent. He wondered if this was all because of them. He didn't know their names, but he felt their power in every report, every red dot. Zorak sat in his office, staring at the map. The nebula sector was alive with trouble, and he was the only one who saw it clearly. The humans weren't fighting like the Krath expected. They were quiet, clever, and patient. Zorak's scar ached as he thought about what was next. The humans weren't scared, they were ready. And the Krath, for the first time in years, were starting to worry. Back on Earth, things were moving fast, but not in the open. The people who cared about the 10 humans exiled to Zoreth 7 weren't shouting or making noise. They were working quietly, planning carefully, like players in a game who know every move counts. In a small, plain building far from the city lights, leaders gathered in secret. There were no flags waving, no cameras flashing, no reporters asking questions. Just a group of serious people sitting around a simple wooden table in a room with no windows. These weren't just any people. They were scientists, pilots, builders, and fighters, all tied to the exiles by love or friendship. They had lost family and friends to the Krath Dominion's cruelty, and they weren't there to talk or complain. They were there to win. The room was small, lit by a single light hanging from the ceiling. The walls were bare and the air felt heavy with purpose. May, Chen's sister and a leader in Earth's council, sat at the head of the table. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp, like she could see through any problem. Next to her was Omar, Zara's uncle, a general with a deep voice and a map of scars on his hands from old battles. Across from him sat Marcus, Leela's scientist brother, his fingers tapping nervously as he clutched a tablet full of ideas. Tara, Sam's best friend and a commander of Earth's space fleet, leaned forward, her arms crossed, ready for action. Lena, Jamal's wife, sketched designs for machines on a piece of paper. Kale, Aisha's hacker friend, stared at a small screen, his fingers ready to dive into Krath systems. Sophia, Maria's young pilot daughter, sat quietly, her eyes fierce with determination. Noah, Leo's brother, tapped his foot, thinking of flight paths through the stars. Raj, Priya's engineer friend, and Alina, Diego's spy cousin, were there too, each bringing their own skills. This group wasn't big, but it was strong, bound by a shared goal: bring their loved ones home and make the Krath pay. May spoke first, her voice steady. "We're not here to cry," she said. "The Krath took our people and we're going to get them back." Everyone nodded. They knew the 10 exiles: Layla, Sam, Aisha, Jamal, Maria, Chen, Priya, Diego, Zara, and Leo were counting on them. The Krath thought they could scare Earth into silence by sending those 10 to a barren moon. They thought wrong. This room was where Earth's fight began, and every person in it had a job to do. They didn't want a war with loud battles and big explosions. They wanted something smarter, something the Krath wouldn't see coming. Marcus stood up, holding his tablet. "I've been working on something," he said. He showed them a small device no bigger than a baseball. It looked simple, but it was clever. "This can shut down Krath machines without breaking them," he explained. "We sneak it into their systems and their ships or stations go dark." Kale grinned, his eyes lighting up. "I can get it into their computers," he said. "I've already hacked one of their stations. I can do it again." The group leaned closer, listening. Marcus's device was like a key to unlock the Krath's weaknesses, and Kale's hacking skills were the hand to turn it. Aina raised her hand, her pencil still moving over her paper. "I'm building something bigger," she said. "A shield generator that can hide our ships from Krath scanners." She showed a drawing of a machine that could make a ship look invisible, like a ghost in space. Noah, the pilot, nodded. "That'll let us get close without being seen," he said. "I can fly through the nebula sector and drop Marcus's devices where they'll hurt the most." Sophia, young but bold, added, "I'm learning those routes too. I can help." The room buzzed with energy. Each idea made their plan stronger, like pieces of a puzzle fitting together. Omar, the general, spread a map across the table. It wasn't a fancy screen, just paper with lines and dots showing Krath bases in the nebula sector. "We don't have their numbers," he said, his voice low. "They have more ships, more soldiers, but we're faster and smarter. We hit their supplies, their signals, their fuel. We make them weak before they know what's happening." He pointed to a dot on the map. "This is their main fuel depot. If we take it out, their ships can't move far." Alina, the spy, leaned in. "I've been to that depot," she said. "I know a way in. Their guards aren't as good as they think." The group kept talking, each person adding something new. Raj, the engineer, had an idea for tiny robots that could crawl into Krath machines and mess them up. "They're small like bugs," he said. "The Krath won't even see them." Tara, the commander, suggested using old ships as decoys to trick the Krath into chasing them. "We make them look busy while we hit their real weak spots," she said. Every idea was written down, every plan checked twice. They didn't want to make mistakes. The Krath were strong, but they were cocky, and that was their flaw. Outside the room, Earth was busy too. In cities and towns, people worked together to help the plan. Factories ran all night, building parts for ships and tools. Kids in schools made posters with pictures of the exiles, keeping their names alive. Some kids, inspired by Leela's stories, wrote letters to the leaders, asking them to stay strong. Others helped their parents pack food and supplies for the pilots and workers. Even the youngest felt part of the fight. They knew their friends and family on Zorath 7 were counting on them, and they didn't want to let them down. May kept the meeting focused. She didn't let anyone argue or waste time. "We have one goal," she said: Get our people back and show the Krath they can't hurt us. She looked at each person, her eyes steady. We don't need to destroy their empire, we just need to make them listen. The group agreed. They didn't want to hurt innocent Krath workers or families. They wanted to target the leaders, the ones who made the cruel choice to exile the 10. This was about justice, not revenge. Kale shared his latest hack. He'd found a way into the Krath's message system, the one they used to talk to their ships. I can send fake orders, he said, his voice excited. Make their ships go to the wrong places. Omar nodded. Do it, he said. If their ships are confused, they can't chase us. Kale's fingers danced over his screen, already planning his next move. He loved outsmarting the Krath, knowing every hack brought Aisha closer to home. Tara spoke next, her voice strong. My fleet is ready, she said. We've got small ships, fast and hard to hit. We can drop Marcus's devices and Lena's robots where they'll do the most good. She looked at Sophia and Noah. You two will lead the first run. Stay in the nebula sector, it's cloudy and hard for the Krath to see. Sophia sat taller, proud to be included. Noah gave her a quick nod, like they were already flying together. The plan was coming together, each piece making it stronger. Elena had news from her spy work. She'd snuck into a Krath base and heard their leaders talking. They're starting to worry, she said. One general, Zorak, knows something's up. He's watching the nebula sector. May frowned. Then we move faster, she said. We hit them before they figure us out. Elena smiled. I can keep an eye on Zorak. He's smart, but I'm sneakier. The group trusted her. Elena could slip in and out of places like a shadow, and her information was gold. Raj showed a tiny robot he'd built, no bigger than a marble. This can crawl into their fuel lines and block them, he said. Their ships will stop moving. Lena added, my shield generators are almost ready. We'll test them tomorrow. The room felt alive, like a fire growing brighter. Every person had a job, and every job mattered. They weren't fighting with anger, they were fighting with hope, knowing each step brought their loved ones closer. The meeting went late into the night. They talked about every detail, where to hit, when to move, how to stay hidden. May wrote everything on a big board, making sure nothing was missed. They planned to hit 3 Krath targets, a fuel depot, a signal tower, and a supply station. Each hit would be quick, quiet, and smart. They didn't want the Krath to know it was them, not yet. They wanted the Krath to feel confused, like the ground was slipping under their feet. Outside, the galaxy was starting to notice Earth's moves. Other planets, ones the Krath had pushed around, sent secret messages. We're with you, one said, sharing a map of a Krath base. Another sent a crate of tools to fix Earth's ships. These planets didn't have big armies, but they had courage, and they hated the Krath's cruelty. Earth wasn't alone, and that made the plan even stronger. May ended the meeting with a quiet promise. We're doing this for Lila, Sam, Aisha, Jamal, Maria, Chen, Priya, Diego, Zara, and Leo, she said. We won't stop until they're home. Everyone nodded, their faces serious but full of hope. They left the room one by one, slipping into the night. Some went to factories to build. Others went to ships to train. Kale went to his computer, ready to hack. Elena packed her bag for another spy mission. They all knew the Krath were strong, but they also knew the Krath had made a mistake. They had hurt people with powerful friends, and those friends were ready to fight. The plan wasn't about big battles or loud victories. It was about being clever, like a fox outsmarting a bear. The Krath thought they could scare Earth into silence, but Earth was awake. In that small room with no flags or press, a spark had been lit. It was growing into a fire, one that would burn through the Krath's pride. The humans weren't just planning. They were building a future where no one could hurt their people again. The Krath didn't know it yet, but Earth was ready to win.